Once you hop on, let us know where you're watching from.
Oh, there it is.
Once you hop on, let us know where
Okay, gotta mute that one. Gotta mute that one. There we go.
Hi, Jesse.
So this is like a delay.
No kidding.
Yeah. Yeah, I waved like a minute ago.
Yeah, I don't think I'm walking.
I don't think so.
Hi, Lori.
I guess I can't make faces over here because everybody can see me.
Only that.
No, everybody can see me.
As you can see, we have a fun presentation for you today.
How come they don't see me? Oh, they will in a minute after the.
Hi, Rachel.
Yeah, don't look at this. This will drive you crazy.
We've got Texas, South Dakota, North Dakota,
Minnesota, Georgia,
Yeah, look at that.
Tennessee. Lots of people with us now.
Sounds like a Billy Joel song.
Yes, it does. All right, everyone, we're going to go ahead and get started. We have some special guests with us today. We have Craig and Patrick with us and from Succeed, and they are going to talk about digestive health.
Make sure if you have any questions that you get those in the comments. They're here to answer any questions that you might have. At the end of this segment, we're going to be drawing one lucky winner who will receive a 60-day trial pack. So make sure you ask all your questions or just say hello and let us know that you're here with us. And with that, we're going to turn it over to you guys.
Thank you. So I'm Patrick Warzak. I'm the marketing director with the company. Craig Stein here is a regional manager. He'll do most of the presentation because it's one of his best qualities is he's a pretty darn good presenter, and hopefully you'll agree. But we've come here today to talk to you not only about our products, of course, Succeed, but a little bit more about digestive health and the horse. And you know, one of the reasons that Craig is also a good presenter is because he actually has real live horse experience going back many, many years. And that's going to be to your advantage as he talks to you. One thing I need to do is make this fix my screen here. So if you give me 1 second, and then I'll turn it over to Craig. I'll be sitting over here.
Hello, Valley Vetters. Hope you guys are all doing well today. I'm here to talk to you a little bit about our product, but mostly about digestive health in horses. The reason I think that's very important is that it's something that's overlooked a lot because we obviously can't see on the inside of a horse. We know how to deal with lamenesses and we know how to deal with what we can see, but what goes on inside the horse, we can't see. So this is going to help you to understand what's going on. So to understand that, we first have to understand what a horse actually is. So by nature, a horse is a nomadic, grazing, herd animal. And what that means is if the horse is in the wild, like he was meant to be, he walks around, he looks for greener pastures, eat grass, find stuff to eat. He's with other horses. It helps him with his stress. They're all together. They're one big herd. And he grazes almost 18 hours a day. Horses have their head down and they're nibbling grass. This does a lot of things for a horse. When they're nibbling all day, they actually create a lot of saliva, almost 5 gallons a day. Saliva has sodium bicarbonate in it, which helps neutralize the pH in their stomach, which helps their whole digestive system work better. When we take our horse out of a natural environment and we put them somewhere else, they don't get to graze as much, therefore they don't produce as much saliva. Therefore, they don't produce as much sodium bicarbonate, and therefore the pH in their stomach isn't what it should be. The interesting thing about a horse, and we know a lot about the stomach of a horse because there's been a lot of studies done, what nobody has really told a lot of people is that their stomachs are very small. A horse's stomach literally could fit in your hands. Per pound, per body weight, the horse has the smallest stomach of all grazing animals. So what that means is that a rabbit, in proportion, who only eats grass, has a bigger stomach than a horse in proportion. So this stomach is very small. It's a holding area, more or less. It empties out about once an hour into the hindgut, into the back end, where a horse does most of its fermentation. Horses, by nature, are a hindgut animal. So as you can see, this is the stomach. And compared to the entire hind gut, look how small it is. A horse has almost 70 foot of intestine, which all the grain and all the food and all the hay and all the grass has to make its way through as the horse digests. So the stomach holds what he eats for a small amount of time, and then he dumps it into his hindgut where it travels. So we know about stomach ulcers because there's been so many studies. Well, what we've found out from studies that we've done by our own veterinarian, Dr. Pellegrini, unfortunately, he's not with us anymore, not with the company, just not with us at all. He is the foremost expert on hindgut ulceration. He performed over 1,000 necropsies on horses, and he found that these horses not only have stomach ulcers, but they have colonic ulcers as well, which means ulcers in their hindgut. And ulcers in their hindgut, they're not easy to look at. Now, ulcers in the stomach, they look like little dots and little scabs, and they bleed, and they definitely cause issues. But the ulcers that we see in hindguts are quite a bit different than what we see in the horse's stomach.
Yeah.
Give me a
Where do you want to go?
clicker. So when we talk about what causes these stresses with horses, why do these horses have ulcers? Well, it's hard to put your finger on one thing because it's everything. Think about what I said in the beginning, a horse being a nomadic grazing herd animal. What do? We take that horse out of that environment. We put him in a 12 by 12 stall. We feed them when we think it's appropriate, morning, noon, and night. If they're lucky, they have free choice hay, but most horses don't. They get it when they get their grain. And we separate them from other horses. Those three things alone will cause ulcers in your horses. Some horses, you can't tell if they have an ulcer because they're very stoic. They're the same horses that when they have a little injury or something bother them, you throw the saddle on them, you throw the harness on them, they throw it away because they step to the plate when it's time to do their job. The other horses that don't deal with that very well, you can tell. They're kind of a little bit pouty. Their ears are not up all the time. They're cinchy when you put the saddle on them. They're kind of wringing their tail because it hurts. But think about it. Everybody thinks when you're tightening the saddle and a horse is kicking, it's because you're squeezing his stomach. That's a misconception. If I can get Patrick to go back to the other picture. So the horse's stomach is here. What you don't see is the rib cage, which continues down here and actually covers the stomach. So the horse's stomach is really, when you're riding, where your knees are. The colon is on the bottom of the horse where you're tightening. So when you're tightening up and your horse is giving you attitude, it's because he probably has a hindgut issue. What that is, you don't know, but that's what the problem is. It's from here, it's not up here in the stomach. So separating the horses, we've shown that there's been studies that show just the change in the herd. If you have 10 horses turned out in the field and you would take 5 away and put them somewhere else, the horses that are separated could start ulceration. If you're feeding a horse intermittently, that could be a start of ulceration. If a horse is dealing with not being able to graze all the time, have something to chew on, that could start some ulceration. So although we do our best to keep our horses happy and we think that they're happy and everything, sometimes internally we have stuff going on. Over the years of being with the company, I've been here now 13 years. I've been in the horse business. I raise standardbred horses. I still have a few. I've used a lot of different supplements. I've done a lot of different things with horses. This is one thing that I could tell you when you give it over a period of time, not overnight. It's not a drug. But over time, you're going to see those subtle changes in your horse. If your horse was acting cinchy with the harness, all of a sudden he's going to start getting a little better. If he doesn't want to bend to the right or bend to the left a little bit, you're going to notice a difference. His attitude's going to get better. If he's not eating, his appetite's going to get better. And why is that? Why are the things going to get better when you're using a Succeed product? Well, let's talk about products that are out there. There's hundreds of them. When I started in the horse business, there were 2 things you could give a horse if you thought his stomach bothered him, and that was Probias or a product called Fast Track, and I don't even know if that's out there anymore. Now, you walk into your tack shop or get online and see, and there's literally hundreds of products. We happen to have a very unique product. Succeed is different than anything else. Not only does Succeed hold not one, not two, not three, but 4 US patents. We also have a lot of patents overseas, but we have science that backs up everything that we talk about. We've done internal studies and testing. We've had outside companies do testing. And what makes our product different is, besides the fact that we have quality ingredients, we have human grade and sometimes pharmaceutical grade. We use the GMP, good manufacturing procedures. We have research. What sets us apart is our oat oil. Now, our ingredients are all natural, so you'll never have to worry about if you're going to a show or a race or nothing tests. And we know over time that oils are good for our horse. We've all fed wheat germ oil or coca oil or corn oil. And the reason that is good for our horse is because it's very high in polar lipids. And polar lipids do a lot of wonderful things for our horse. The main thing that it does is it helps a horse to absorb more of his fat-soluble vitamins, A, D, E, and K, but also a lot of other things, his nutrients, and all the things that he should be getting that he's not, because the grain is passing so quickly through the horse's system. The reason our oat oil is so much different than anything out there is the extraction process that's used to get the polar lipids from wheat germ oil or cocos oil is a heat process, which kills a lot of polar lipids. There's a company in Sweden that we have the exclusive rights to, that we buy all of their oat oil, which they found a way to cold extract it. And what that means is that our polar lipids in our Succeed allows almost 500 times more absorption in your fat-soluble vitamins. It sounds like a lot, but we have studies to show that. So what that means is that in each tube or dose of Succeed, there's actually 80 pounds of oat oil in each dose. Now, it sounds like a lot, but if you think about how much oil is one little shuck of oat, it's not very much, it's a dot. But 80 pounds of oat oil is in every dose.
The oat oil of 80 pounds of oats.
Of 80 pounds of oats, correct. So you're getting more polar lipids in here than anything. The other thing that we have in there is beta-glucane, and it's pharmaceutical grade. And what that does is it actually forms a hydrogel in the horse's stomach. And what that means is that it allows the horse to absorb food a little bit at a time. So the process of when the horse is digesting, it's not allowing that grain to get just dumped. So it moderates the releases of these simple sugars and nutrients so the horse can get more out of them. Over the years, we've had so many people say, oh, your product's great, my horse has gained weight. It puts weight on my horse. Well, in reality, there's really nothing in here to put weight on your horse. What's happening is he's absorbing more of what you're already feeding him, which in turn allows you to feed a little bit less hard grain. The horse can't get enough hay. Like, you can give free choice hay. It's probably the single best thing you can do for a horse with all the new studies and all the things out there. They have the new grade. I'm sure Valley Vet has a wide variety of slow feeder hay bags, which doesn't allow a horse to eat it all at once and be done with a flake of hay in 15 minutes. It imitates nature and allows them to pick these little pieces of hay out at a time, which is the way their body was really meant to digest. So other than doing that, there's really not a lot you can do for a horse when you have them in this environment. Okay, where are we at?
What do you want?
I don't know.
Percentages of ulcers. We haven't done
Okay,
that.
so let's talk a little bit about percentages of ulcers in horses. And these studies were done by a company called Mariel, who came out with the GastroGuard product, which is, I'm sure you guys sell it. It is the only FDA-approved treatment for ulcers in horses, for stomach ulcers in horses. Has nothing to do with the hindgut of horse. Now, that being said, I'd like to talk briefly about what GastroGuard is, and it's a great product. We use it in the race world all the time. Never tell you not to use it. It's wonderful, but it does have some side effects. Now, in a horse's stomach, he has what's called a proton pump. You want to go back?
Sure.
I'm sorry, I skipped over this percentage here. So in a horse's stomach, he has what's called proton pumps. We actually have proton pumps in our stomach as well. If we have an overactive proton pump, we take Nexium or Prilosec. If you read the ingredients on Nexium or Prilosec, it is omeprazole. If you read the ingredients on Gastrogard, it is omeprazole. Omeprazole is what's called a PPI, a proton pump inhibitor. And what that does is it slows down the production of the hydrochloric acid that these proton pumps in the stomach deliver. So us as people, when we eat food or actually smell food, our proton pump has a mechanism that turns on. So we can digest our food. If we have an overactive proton pump, we have a problem and we take Gastrogard. Horses, on the other hand, because in nature, they're supposed to be out grazing all the time, their proton pump never shuts off. So when we give a horse a proton pump inhibitor, we're shutting off the only mechanism they have to help them to digest their grain. So now all the grain that they eat in their stomach that's supposed to get broken down by this hydrochloric acid that the proton pump puts up is now going through undigested. So it causes an issue for a horse. So what do we do? How do we combat that? Well, if I use a Gastrogard on a horse, I make sure I use Succeed on the horse because Succeed is also going to help with the hindgut, protect the hindgut. So if your veterinarian recommends that you use Gastrogard, I would say Succeed needs to go along with it to protect the horse's hindgut. If you need results fast, if you're going to a show or a fair or a battle race and you think your horse's stomach is upset and he's got some ulcers, Gastrogard, that product works very quickly. It's a drug. Within 15 hours, a lot of times, it starts slowing the production of that hydrochloric acid. But over a period of time, it has some detrimental effect. Not only does it slow down the production of the hydrochloric acid, but also a horse's first line of defense when he's out in the field eating against pathogens, against Salmonella, Streptococcus, is that hydrochloric acid. It's very acidic. It kills it. So if a horse happens to ingest it in the field and he's on a PPI, a proton pump inhibitor, he has a chance not to kill that bad bacteria and get sick. So you have to be careful when you use it. The recommended time is not more than 28 days. And there's a reason for that. The interesting thing about Succeed is we did a comparison with the University of Glasgow in Ireland. Scotland, I'm sorry. And we showed that after 60 days, our product is as effective as Gastrogard. So you're not going to get that same result, but over a period of time, you're going to see the same result. Not only does our product help treat an ulcer, but our patents are also for prevention, which nobody else can claim. So our product will actually help a horse from getting ulcers back. Now, some things that people always ask and talk about, okay, so I think my horse might have an ulcer. He has a problem. What we find is people get on our product after 60 days, they love it. The horse looks great. He gains weight. His coat is good. Some of his bad habits have disappeared and they think that their horse is fixed and now they stop using it. Well, what happens then is unless you've changed what you're doing with that horse, the reason that he got into that digestive imbalance was because of all these things. He's by himself, he's eating hard grain, he's doing a lot of different things. Those ulcers are going to come back. So as long as a horse is in the environment where he's stressed, even though he might not appear stressed, he needs to be on Succeed. If he's done with the season and he's going out in the field with his buddies for a couple of months, he's going to eat grass and be a horse, no reason to be on the product. So while he's in training or he's competing, he needs to stay on Succeed. So I wanted to go back to the percentage real quick. So the studies that Marielle did probably almost 20 years ago, but we actually repeated, was that 87% of the horses showed gastric ulcers in the study they did. In the study we did, we showed 54% of them, or 63% of them, had colonic ulcers. I think 54% had both. Here's the really interesting thing about this chart, right here. Only 3% of all performance horses that were scoped didn't have ulcers. So when you think, well, my horse is okay, he looks good, he's got a great coat, he's doing well, you might fall in that 3%, but more than likely your horse is stoic. He throws away that little bit of pain that he has internally. He does away with it. You put the saddle on him and he's a good horse, but guess what? He could even be better. So a lot of times we'll see results on our bad horses quicker. your horse has got a bad hair coat, he's not eating, he's losing weight, he's showing all the signs of ulceration. You put him on Succeed and, almost, I don't want to say right away, within a week or so, you start seeing subtle changes, but over time, you see drastic changes and your horse all of a sudden transforms back into the horse that he either was or that you wanted him to be. Where the horses that look good and feel good, and you don't think they have ulcers, the differences are subtle, but they're there, and they can even be better. So I wanted to go to, okay, so the things that we talk about improving in a horse are appearance, temperament, performance. The horse is going to perform better if he feels better. He's going to run a little bit faster if his hindgut isn't hurting, if his ulcers are healed up. His temperament, and this is one of the amazing things. Like, I just had a boy from Missouri who tried our product, called me Missouri, yeah. And he had a horse that was cribbing terrible. And he said he's had the horse for almost a year. It's a good horse, but you can't stop him from cribbing. And usually horses that crib, they'll never stop. We can try all the gadgets we want, we can't get him to stop cribbing. This horse was on Succeed. It took almost 40 days. After 40 days, he said, I can't believe the horse doesn't crib anymore. This isn't the first time that I've heard this. And to me, that amazes me, that a horse that was a creature of habit, that's done something every day for years sometimes, all of a sudden stops. If you think about why that might be, so if a horse needs something in his stomach for that hydrochloric acid to mix with, for him to have a good working digestive system, and he's in between meals and there's no hay in his stall and he has no grain and he wants to eat something, nature tells him to eat something, what is he going to do? He starts chewing the wood, starts chewing the wall. There's your problem. So by giving that horse free choice, hay might eliminate it, but he's already got the ulcers. Once the ulcers are cleared, horses actually stop. Stall walking. I've had horses that have been stall walking forever because they're actually they're a flight animal, right? So what are they doing? They're walking away from their pain. Their gut hurts. They're trying to get away from it. They're walking in circles. We've put horses on Succeed and actually had them stop stall walking. So there's a lot of things that you'll see that your horses change over a period of time with this product. So Succeed comes in two different formulas. One is the oral syringe, which you give once a day. We recommend double dosing for the first about 10 days if you put your horse on right away, which means you want to give them a tube morning and night. Once they understand that you're not trying to deworm them or give them butyrobenamine, they'll literally eat this out of your hand. You don't have to fight with them and they'll over the stall with no halter on, they'll eat it like it's candy. They think it's a treat. It's very palatable. It tastes like oat and honey. It's actually pretty good. The other formula that comes in is granular. Are these open, Patrick?
No, but you can open it. I don't care.
These are granular, and I think you guys actually, if you're signed up, have a chance to win some of this product today. And this is to be put in their feed every day, and they eat it right on top of their plate, which is fine. As you can see, it's very grainy, powdery. It tastes the same. They like it. They eat it very well. This was actually made because a lot of big stables who have 30 or 40 horses don't have time to dose every horse. So as they're making their grains, it's just easier to scoop in. Me personally, I like the syringes. You know the horse is getting it. If your horse isn't eating, doesn't do much good to put something on his grain if he's not eating it. You know it's getting in their mouth. You know they're eating it. It gets in their system. So even if you wanted to start off with the Succeed in the syringe form and then go to the granular, that's fine. But I always like to start them off with this so you know it gets in their system. Okay, where are we at?
That's about it.
Okay.
Want to answer some questions?
You guys have any questions?
Yeah,
Them,
he's answered a lot of them as we've gone.
we've had a lot of questions coming in over the chat.
We'll start with Jessie. She had one early on, and she said, do you recommend doing a 30-day box every few months or just as needed?
See, I don't think our product works like that. So if you have a horse that might have a problem, if you put him on it for 30 days, you're just now getting started correcting his digestive system. So putting on and taking him off is just going to have that horse go back in the other direction. What we like to see is, as long as that horse is in the environment that got him into that digestive imbalance, that he stay on Succeed. if the horse is going through some ulceration and has some issues, and you're getting ready maybe to turn him out for a while, keep him on the product until you turn him out, and then let him be a horse. But I hate for people to do that, and a lot of people do, and I know it's a fairly expensive product, but when you see the results, you'll see that it's really worth it, because your horse really is going to, you're going to see the changes in your horse. I know over the years, I've fed everything to my horses, MSM and DMG and Lixotonic and electrolytes. And, by the time I got dumping all the supplements in their grain, they look at their feed bucket and they wouldn't even want to eat it. Looked like a rainbow. But even when I got the horses to eat it, I could never say, wow, I see a difference in my horse. If you put your horse on Succeed for 30 days, you're going to see a difference. You're not going to want to take him off. It's not good to take him off unless he's either going out into the field or he's leaving your barn and you just want to get him, looking good so you can sell him and let somebody else worry about his issues. But as long as he's got the same environment that caused him to have this digestive imbalance, he should probably stay on Succeed.
The reason that we recommend in the instructions to allow 90 days is really more about the idea of expectations for when you're going to start to see some of those appearance and then ultimately temperament and performance issues. The product is not a drug, not like Gastrogard that is literally instantly shutting off the production of acid, which is then going to allow healing to occur very quickly. It's more like taking vitamins, right? It's about providing natural nutrients that just take time to change what's going on inside the horse. And of course, once you get to that point, then it's really a question, as Craig said, of keeping the horse in that condition, because all of the things that are causing it don't go away by themselves, right? If your horse is being kept in a stall, if it's being trailered and hauled to events, if it's being, occasionally exercised, all of those things that are contributing all that stress that Craig was talking about earlier, as long as those are continuing, then the digestive stress is going on. And that's why you want to keep your horse on Succeed. And that's why a full dose every day. That's why we say right on the box, once a day, every day.
I want to go back real quick. Are you guys able to put up the pictures so everybody can see them? Or have they been up yet? I want to talk a little bit about that.
Before and after, so yeah, you can do that.
Can you guys do that?
There we go.
Okay, so I just want to tell you guys real quick about a couple things. One was,
What's this horse?
okay, that was actually a girl that worked for, I'm allowed to say
For another retailer?
that was a girl that worked for another retailer.
And we heard you now.
She had real problems with the horse, as you can see. And I went down and I did some training for the retailers, and we talked about Succeed. And she said, I've tried everything else. I've spent thousands of dollars on Gastrogard and other supplements. I'd like to try some Succeed. So she tried it. Well, this is a girl that's, she's a horse girl. She knows what she's doing. She works for a company that sells supplements, so she knows about it. She tried the drugs from the vet. She's actually had the horse in the clinic, and this was going on for almost a year that this horse just continued to lose weight. Well, here's the thing. If you have a headache, but you're rubbing liniment on your knee, it's not going to help your head. If you have a hindgut ulcer and you're treating the stomach, you're not helping the hindgut. So she was treating the stomach of this horse where the problem was the hindgut of the horse. And nobody would address that. Nobody does address that. We address that, obviously. After 60 days, 45 days, so you can show the next pictures, the transformation of this horse in the next 3 months was truly amazing. And we only have a couple of pictures to show you, but I get them all the time about people who've, and again, I'm sure anybody watching doesn't have a horse that's in this stressful of a state. But as you can see, that horse after, I think that's 45 days.
90 days.
After 90 days, the transformation that horse made from the first picture you saw. Doesn't even look like the same horse. I actually questioned if it was, but when I looked at details, I could see the horse that actually has a scar on his left hind leg from an old injury, and it's there in the first picture. But they don't even look like the same horse. And this horse is obviously doing very well. She's very happy. The other one that I want to show you was a high-level dressage horse.
Go ahead and put the next image up if you can, please.
high-level dressage horse that a girl who worked for MWI, who is a vet distributor rep. They sell all the drugs to the veterinarians. And she had this horse. He had two exploratory colic surgeries because they couldn't figure out why he kept colicking. She spent thousands of dollars on all kinds of PPIs, Gastrogard, Ranitidine, Cimetidine, all kinds of drugs to treat his stomach. Well, find out the horse had a hindgut issue. We gave her some Succeed, or she actually bought some Succeed from the company. I went down, I looked at the horse, we talked. If you go to the next picture. Now, here's the thing with this horse. This horse didn't respond as well in the same time frame because he was in such poor shape. It took him longer than most, but you can see the difference in the horse over a period of time. That horse has not colicked since, and it's been 6 years. The girl Tiffany was telling me he was colicking every time something changed. They got different hay. The weather changed for no reason at all. She would come in and Banamine and reflux and everything else. And she started him on Succeed, and he has not colicked since. And she's back riding him. She hadn't ridden him for a year. So, proof is in the pudding. When you actually see what this is going to do for your horse, and I'm sure most of you that are watching are horse people and you're around your horses a lot, you'll be able to see the difference. And to me, I could stay up here and I could tell you everything that's great about our product, but unless you actually see the difference, it doesn't matter what I say. And I promise you'll see a difference with this product. This is one of the few things in the 40 years that I've been around horses that I could say I notice a difference when I give it to my horses. Not only do they look better, do they act better, do they feel better, but they perform better. And to me, racing, that's the bottom line.
This one's from Ashley.
There's a couple of questions. Do you want me to just answer some of the questions myself, or do you guys want to pick some out?
Here's one from Ashley. She says, I recently moved a horse from Texas to Nebraska, and I'm super suspicious that he has ulcers. Do you think this will help?
You want to read them to me?
Yeah.
Can they not hear us? I don't know.
Oh, I get it.
Is our sound off?
I know what's going on because I muted that.
Can you guys hear us?
Read them to me and I'll answer them. I can't see them.
Oh.
So I have a horse cribbing. You talked about that. Are there any supplements or medications that you should not use when your horse is on Succeed?
That's a very good question. Our product will not interfere with anything else you're using. I never recommend, if you're using something and that you think is working, to take them off, because if it's working and you like it, you can keep it on. It's not going to interact with anything or any drug. Like I said, we use Succeed in the racing world along with Gastrogard. So it could be used with a drug as well. So there's really nothing. But I will say you might be wasting your money if you're using another digestive aid and Succeed, because we're going to cover both the stomach and the hindgut. And there's really not much else that you really want to do. A lot of the products, and not to talk bad about anybody's products, I've had a lot of luck with a lot of stuff that I've bought, from retailers over the years. But any kind of sucralfate that coats the stomach, it's a temporary thing. It's like taking a Tums. It's basically the same ingredient. It's calcium carbonate, and what that does is it helps coat the stomach. And what it's not doing is it's not fixing the root cause. It's just fixing the side effect of your issue. So the horse feels better for a little bit. His stomach feels better. But as soon as that coating is gone, he's back to having his digestive imbalance, where our product is actually going to help him heal and keep it from coming back. So although you can use, if you're using other digestive aids, it's probably not necessary. If you're using joint supplements, if you're using electrolytes, if you got something in there for, hoof growth, although I will tell you a lot of our ingredients are going to help other things. It helps their immune system. The beta-glucan is a very powerful immune stimulant, so we help with horses getting sick. It's not necessary to use a lot of other things, but again, if you have a joint supplement, or if your horse has Cushing's, or if your horse has some issues, that it's not going to affect them any at all.
And of course, one of the things, we've had people ask questions about ulcers. We've had people ask questions about, is it good for hindgut ulcers versus gastric ulcers? And really the thing to keep in mind about our product, Succeed, is that it's not really meant to be a treatment per se, although we've shown from the research that it has that effect over time. But it's really about total digestive health. It's about providing nutrients that were really, and if you think, we know about the formula, we know how it was created. It was created by virtue of understanding all of the different ways that the digestive system, the structure of the system, its different functions, about nutrient absorption, about moving food through the system, and the physical structure. The fact that there are these what are called villi, these sort of finger-like projections that provide the surface area contact for feed for nutrient absorption. About healing, for example, and creating a formula that had specific nutrients that target and address many of those different sort of functional and or structural requirements. And so the point then is that by providing these nutrients, they sort of form the building blocks to ensure that the horse, under stress, in the duress of the performance horse lifestyle, the way that we feed them, all the things that Craig talked about earlier, to ensure that it has all of those ingredients, all of those nutrients readily available, to ensure that the entire digestive system is working the way it's supposed to, that it is structurally sound, so that you have the optimal nutrient absorption, you have optimal movement of the feed through the system, you have optimal healing, you have even immune strength, because every single one of the ingredients in Succeed has some benefit in supporting the immune system. So the horse as a whole system is working to maintain good health, which in turn then means you don't have these problems, even though you're putting it under that sort of stressful environment that we talked about. And so I just wanted to sort of reinforce that the way that the product works is very different from when you're talking about whether it's Gastrogard or Nitidine or many other sort of pharmaceutical products that target one thing, like shutting off, the production of acid, which is a natural part, by the way, of digestion. So our goal with Succeed is not to change nature, but to supplement it. That's why it's called a supplement. But so that it gets what it normally, naturally needs to do the job itself. And that's why you end up with such good results over time, but that's also why it's important to keep your horse on Succeed over time as well.
Next question.
All right, so the next questions here asking about horses with EPM. I had one here, somebody was asking about diarrhea, and another one asking about metabolic issues and whether Succeed would be beneficial or how it would affect a horse in terms of its sugar levels or sugar and starch levels and the like. So what we're dealing with in all of those instances is we're dealing with questions that relate to very specific health issues, all of which arise ultimately because of, again, how we feed horses, how we manage horses. The way that we feed horses when we're dumping grain in the bucket is very different from the trickle feeding of grazing for hours on end, a little bit of grass, a little bit of fiber, mostly, might be other things too, but it's mostly fibrous material. If you look back again, and I can bring up the image real quick, and you look back again at the image of the horse, the digestive system, you'll recognize that the horse, what we do with the horse and what a horse's lifestyle looks like today has evolved, right? We've gone from rural environments, grazing, to then, working horses, to now really primarily used for sort of fun activities. And a lot of sort of rigorous work for short periods of time, keeping them in stalls, doing all of these different things, feeding them differently. But that system, that could be a prehistoric horse, because the digestive system has not evolved to keep up with what we're doing to the horse. So as a result, everything that we do with a horse is really unnatural. And so that unnatural treatment in turn creates unnatural, stressful situations that manifest themselves in forms of diseases, different conditions, different pathologies that many horses probably in the past just never had to deal with. So we're dealing with the effects in a way of what we've done to the horse. And so we can't necessarily expect people to stop doing what they're doing with their horse. I mean, that would be pointless, right? So the point of our product was, it derived from the owner of the company saying, I have horses and I provide the best care possible. I give them the best feed, and yet we still have these issues. And so it ultimately was, the goal to come up with something that would naturally address these issues. And so, yeah, you're going to deal with high levels of sugar because there's a lot of sugar in grain. And even if you're not feeding grain per se, unless it's pure fiber, when you look at the digestive system, the biggest part of it physically is the cecum and the colon, the hindgut, where you have a huge population of bacteria. And that bacterial population, the microbiota, as we call it now,
Don't get too technical.
is where you're dealing with fermentation of all that fiber to produce volatile fatty acids that are the primary nutrient source for the horse. So left to nature, it's designed to accommodate that trickle feed of high fiber food. So as soon as we change it, you're going to be introducing potential problems. And our goal is to basically get the horse back to its natural sort of way.
I want to add one thing. When whoever asked a question about equine protozoal myelitis or what was the other thing? A metabolic issue. So we're not going to help those issues. Those are needed to be treated with different drugs, obviously. But when we know what stresses a horse, and everything stresses a horse, when they have those issues, they're going to be stressed. It's going to bother them. So they're more likely to start having ulcers when they have these other issues. So it actually benefits the horse to keep his digestive system healthy so that he's not stressed about these other issues that he has. So they can be used in conjunction, but our product is not going to help with those specific issues.
Another question says, how long do you need to keep them on it? I finished one container and his manure was better. Now 2 weeks off and it's going back to looser form. Well, that kind of
I kind of went over that, and that's what we're going to find. So your horse has diarrhea. I will say one thing. Our product doesn't work fast, but on diarrhea, it's amazing. Within a few days, a week, and sometimes, it's a few days. It's not quite a week. All of a sudden, their stool is starting to get better right away. So a lot of people like it. Well, what caused that horse's stool to be loose in the first place? Was it the hay you're feeding? Was it rich molasses type grain? He's getting too much sugar. Is he being, whatever it is, we might help that right away. And after a month, the horse's manure is great. Now you take it away. Well, he's still in that same environment. He's still getting that same hay. He's still doing the same things. So of course the diarrhea is probably going to come back more than likely.
And I guess one other thing I wanted to throw in here, it's kind of inherent in a lot of these questions, but also just something that we want people to know, is that, people might ask, how do I know that the horse has these problems? Because as Craig was explaining before, a lot of times the horse might be very stoic, might be something that just doesn't show you pain. Some horses do. But sometimes what you're seeing in terms of other issues that you think are maybe training related or are just, it's just a nervous horse, are actually underlying sort of symptoms or early signs that there may be something going on inside the horse. The horse can't talk to you, right? Can't say, oh, I have pain here, or I'm not feeling right. And certainly even before you get to the point of pain, you have the issues of simply getting enough nutrients, getting enough energy from its feed. And remember that energy and nutrients from the feed are not just feeding performance in the sense of literal energy, but it's also why ultimately when you have a horse that's healthy, you have better not only performance, but you have a better appearance, you have a better sort of attitude and temperament, because the horse can even think clearly, because even mental processes require energy and nutrients. And so if you are having issues, it might even be manifest in a hoof issue. There's a strong connection between what's going on in the gut and the horse's feet and hooves. So it's really important to keep your eyes open to these other issues, like we talked about walking the stall. We talk about other stall vices, but it may even be more subtle than that. It might just be that the horse doesn't seem to be giving you its true potential. And really, that's one of the reasons why our slogan, our tagline is "My Horse at its Best," because we've come to realize that when the horse's digestive tract is healthy and functioning at an optimal level, then everything, it literally means that everything can be optimal. And you don't need to put on, coat shine to make the horse look better. it'll naturally look better.
I want to, Patrick brought up something that made me think about something. If you go back to the, one of the colonic ulcer pictures. So while Dr. Pellegrini was still alive and we were, before Succeed was actually on the market, he was developing it, and I had a stable 20 standardbreds, and we kept 10 on my program, and we put 10 on Succeed, and we drew CBC chem profiles, and we checked blood work, and we did a lot of different things. And we did see an increase in our red blood count, which correlated to if a horse had an ulcer and it was a bleeding ulcer, and we fixed it, it wasn't bleeding, and therefore our RBC was able to rise. But the really interesting thing that I found was that being that we were racing and we're going in a circle, I race at a half-mile track, so they're going around twice, that we always have left hind lameness. Trotters and pacers seem to get a lot of their power pushing off their hind. And we always seem to have issues in their hocks and mostly their lower joints. So we inject them quite often with good hyaluronic acid, sometimes cortisone. And we found that these horses that were on the Succeed over a period of time, although they had no significant anything in there to help a horse with his lameness, that if these horses had these ulcers on their colon, which you can't tell when the horse is alive, if they had colonic ulceration and they had these big masses in their colon, and it's usually their right dorsal colon. So what's a horse do when he's off on his right side? He compensates and he moves over to the left. So over time, a horse with a colonic ulcer in his hind gut, which it has to be, is using his left hind to get away from his pain on his right side. Now, this is conjecture. This isn't a study. But all of a sudden, these horses that had chronic left hind lameness were suddenly getting sound. And when we went to inject the hock after a couple of months, like that was routine every few months, we found that the fluid was better, the viscosity was better, that, he was starting to get sounder. And the only explanation that we came up with is that the horse must have had a colonic ulceration, and the Succeed was then helping him fix this issue here. And all of a sudden he was straighter in the shafts, they jog in a cart, he wasn't leaning in the turns, and he was starting to get sounder. And this happened on multiple horses. So it was interesting that a horse could actually be sore internally. Just imagine when your stomach hurts and you're having pain, and somebody, tightening a belt up like we tighten a saddle up, and then asking you to go out and run. Well, if your gut hurts, you might run a little bit, and then after you're done, your other side might hurt, your hip might hurt, your knee might hurt, all secondary lamenesses from your initial issue, which might be internal. So that was something very interesting that we found, especially with performance horses. And you can imagine barrel racers who are going around these tight poles, and the new pole thing they're doing with weaving it out, and these horses got to get around it tight. If they've got colonic ulceration, that it's going to keep them from being their fastest and being able to really accelerate off it because it's bothering them. Where when Succeed helps keep them healthy internally, it helps them sound externally. And you have to, I understand that it's not going to fix a spur or a chip or anything like that. But if it is coming from a colonic ulceration and you fix that, your horse is going to be that much better.
I'm going to check out this setting here to see if I can get our sound back. We lost our ability to hear.
Let me change the picture too. How do we do that?
Oh, we can change it. Okay, for some reason I know I can see you.
They can see us, but not hear us.
So now I can hear you. There we go.
Oh, cool.
Yay.
Yay, good.
I don't know why it just kind of disappeared on us, and that happened a little while ago too. So that's
Okay.
because I can see on the clock that it's getting close to 3:30, so we're closing in on an hour. So I don't know if you want to continue.
You did a great job asking those questions.
Yeah, well, the questions keep going, right? But
Yes.
one of the things I was going to suggest too is for the people who have continue to have questions, feel free to go to the Facebook page for Succeed and post your questions there. And we can even have our veterinarian respond to questions when they're more technical. There were a few questions here that I actually would avoid simply because neither one of us are vets, and that's kind of getting into that area. But we'd be happy to have our representatives respond to you on Facebook. If you go there, you can also go to our website at www.succeed-equine.com. And we'll be happy to answer any of the questions that you guys have. The most important question, of course, that I saw come up here is somebody actually asked the question, where can I get this?
Valley Vet.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So we have the 30-day, we have the 60-day, and the 180-day in the granules, and we also have the paste.
There you go. And somebody had asked the question about the difference between this sort of original version of Succeed and the veterinary formula. And it does have a few different ingredients. By and large, what we have found in our research is that the veterinary formula does work a little faster, but eventually over time, you'll get the same benefits and the same results. The biggest difference, of course, is that the veterinary formula is only sold through veterinarians because it does include a warranty sort of program relative to colic. If you are interested in learning more about that, again, I recommend visiting our website. But if you want to try it in the short term, go ahead and check out the Valley Vet website and find the product there. Maybe you'll be one of the lucky winner to get the free trial that we're offering as a result of this.
Cool.
Just playing with my computer now.
Well, if you don't have any more to add, I think we're ready to pick a winner.
Yes.
All right.
Okay. So our winner for today is Ashley Hansen.
Woo! Congratulations. Okay, we want to thank you guys so much for joining us. Thank you to all of our viewers for all the questions, and be sure to tune in next Thursday because we're going to be live again with Richie Waters. So, all right. Well, congratulations, Ashley, and once again, thank you.
Thank you, guys. Bye.